Good morning. Let's talk about the used car update and what you should seriously consider buying. Let's dive right into it. We know the cost of living is escalating. We know interest rates are holding. Inflation continues to slowly rise. And with the cost of living and even just to afford food or a roof over your head, we know a lot of people are living under banks and bridges. It's becoming a much bigger struggle for a lot of people to buy a new vehicle, let alone even used. They can't afford it. But what we're going to do is we're going to give you the latest update in specific segments of the market and what you should consider looking at buying. But let's take this from the top and talk specifically pickup trucks. Now, we know brand new pickup trucks have been declining. We've seen, yes, they're ultimately popular. Pickup trucks are used more than just by construction and contractors. Now people are buying them as more of a luxury item. But because they've become considered more as a luxury item, a lot of people can't afford them. The prices have escalated year over year. However, sales have declined year over year on brand new pickup trucks. Well, with the sales declining, obviously people are starting to look elsewhere. They can't afford the full-size pickup trucks for 70 or 80 or 90,000 for a brand new one. Even with big incentives, it's becoming a cost prohibitive detail. Now, I'd like to give you an example. If you're looking for a full-size pickup truck, where the market continues to go is incentives on the new market, but the used market, now we're starting to see the space that you want to get into. If you feel you need a full-size truck, I would always suggest the lower the mileage, the better. But the beauty is a lot of the old conventional V8 engines in most of these full-size trucks, whether it's GM, Ford, Chevy. Ford's got the Coyote, Chevy, of course, 5.3s, 6.2s, aren't necessarily the most reliable, but they're workhorses for the most part. And Rams, you know, the Hemi, the 5.7s and 4.7s and some of the older models, and you go really old 3.18s and 3.60s are probably their best engines. I would consider looking at the older vehicles. If you're looking at a full-size truck and you need to get around, it's the older trucks that are going to do a little better for you. You're going to get a better bang for your buck. If you're buying a truck that's 10 years old, try to keep it under 100,000 miles and you get a phenomenal deal. Now, a lot of people consider that beater territory. I don't. I have a 2003 Ram with about 105,000 miles on it, and it runs like a top. And I've said this before, just keep running those and you'll be happy. But if you're looking for full-size trucks, the 10-year-old, 5 to 10-year-old space is where you want to get the sweet spot with reasonable mileage. Don't go looking for those 1 or 2-year-old trucks. You're still paying close to full retail. And if you're going for full retail on that first or 1 or 2 or 3-year-old full-size truck, don't even bother. You might as well just go new or consider that, because obviously with some of these incentives on the new truck prices, we're seeing better interest rates. We're definitely seeing more of these manufacturers looking at giving you deals. You're probably better off just going for something that is brand new. Otherwise, skip right to the word go, pass go, and of course, just go right to that 5 to 10-year-old vehicle with a moderate set of mileage on it. Make sure you do all your checks and you're good to go. Other vehicles that you want to talk about are the small trucks. Now, that's been a rising segment. We know some of the small trucks, people don't necessarily want the full-size trucks because they increase in cost, insurance, and of course, fuel costs with some of the V8s. People are now looking for, I like the capability of a truck, but I don't necessarily want the big full-size truck. I want something I can drive around in the city. So people are looking at options. Rangers have been rising in popularity. Watch out for those. They're great trucks. They're versatile and for the most part quite reliable, but they're coming at a cost. Again, I would look at something a little older, 5 years plus. If you're looking at something late model, you're going to pay a premium because they still tagged on to the end. Anything that's kind of within this last space, late model, that's within the last since 2021 and above, if you buy anything within that space, you're probably still paying a significant dollar, and then you might as well round up and look at brand new. With that said, if you're looking at an older Ranger, definitely great trucks, easy to work on, and you definitely want to watch out for those because unfortunately those prices have been rising. And because people are looking for those vehicles, or old Tacomas. Toyota Tacomas are one of the most popular small pickup trucks. They're super reliable. They'll go for 300,000 miles and people know that they can trust a Tacoma. So those prices have been going up as well. Mavericks, obviously, newer vehicle in the marketplace, you're still going to pay a premium even for a slightly used one there. So if you're looking for a small truck, you're going to pay a little bit more money. So be careful. If you don't want to spend top dollar, maybe avoid the small trucks or go something quite a bit older. Definitely want to look in that $5,000 to $15,000 range. You can probably find yourself a significantly decent vehicle. So you're probably wondering then, electric vehicles. Well, we know expensive is their middle name when you're buying brand new. Tesla, we've seen prices drop 30-40%, and the worst part is buying a brand new one is depreciation galore. So definitely, if you're looking at buying an electric vehicle, I would suggest looking at the used car market. We're definitely seeing Porsche Taycans, they're not selling. They're sitting on the lot for a significant amount of time. Audi e-trons, we know if you bought one last year, you're probably going to pay, or you're able to find a slightly used one for about 40 or 50% less than it was last year. But if you're the primary owner or the initial buyer of that new Audi e-tron GT, you probably paid through the nose, and now you're going to take it like that. And sadly, you are going to lose if you buy those electric vehicles, any electric vehicles new. So the place to get in on the electric vehicles, if you want to buy one, is used. So Teslas, we know the Model 3s, popular. We're getting them, a lot of them, more of them punted out of the Hertz fleet. And there's a lot of great options there to get something with moderate to higher miles for almost dirt cheap. So definitely you can look at that space if you just want to get into one. Obviously, vehicles, for example, like the Ford Mustang Mach-E are not selling all that well, and now they're starting to pop up, and electric vehicles for Ford have not been doing all that well. So if you want to get a Mustang Mach-E, maybe look at first generation, but even more importantly, the Ford Lightning, the F-150 Lightning, not selling. They're not selling new. They've scaled back on production on new. People don't want them. The range isn't there. They're overpriced, and quite frankly, nobody wants to buy them new. However, if you really want to have one, maybe look at an F-150 Lightning, and you can get one used, maybe a couple years old. You've got the pick of the litter, and you can probably find them for about 50 to 60% of what they were brand new. Now, if you're getting one that's a couple years old. So the Ford F-150 Lightning, not a great proposition brand new, but definitely if you need to have one, definitely get one used because you're going to get phenomenal deals. Same thing with the premium Teslas, the S's and the X's. Those are the more premium. The Plaids, for example, even better yet, you can lose 30 or 40% of those off the top if you're a new buyer. But as a used buyer, you know, we're seeing those from about $130,000 plus for extras in the Canadian market, and obviously closer to 6 figures in the US market, brand new. But what you're finding is on the used market, after about a year or two, we're finding those have dropped off 30 to 40%. So you can get yourself a great deal on a Tesla, F-150 Lightning, Taycans, you name it. Electric vehicles aren't selling. Don't buy them new. No. Buy them used, and you can get a great deal across the board. Doesn't matter, whatever make, model, pretty much, you can get some good deals there. And another one is luxury cars. Beamers, Benzes, Audis, steady state. There's small incentives. They're not giving any great incentives on brand new. They just sort of hold their own, 2.9, 3, 4.9%. You know, we've seen Range Rover, Land Rover products. A lot of those are giving you 1.5% loyalties on the front end for brand new, which means that who's buying a used Range Rover? We know that the reliability is shit in those cars or those SUVs, but if you're a glutton for punishment and you want to get yourself a phenomenal deal, you can get yourself a 4 or 5 year old Range Rover. Maybe you find the right owner, previous owner, that actually looked after it, and you're not worried about the bankroll, but you want to look at value for money. You can get yourself a phenomenal Range Rover or even a premium BMW, some of the worst depreciating vehicles, 7 Series, 5 Series BMWs. Again, Range Rovers, Audis, the A7s, some of the hardest hits when you're looking for used car luxury vehicles. Those are going to be the vehicles you want to focus on. If you're looking in the luxury car segment, don't go with the M3s, M4s, M2s. They're still holding a strong value, and the real enthusiasts want those cars. And even on the used car market, they've always maintained strong holding. So if you're looking luxury, I would basically, honestly, unless you are a glutton for punishment, the market right now, the way it is, the cost of living, inflation, if you can get out of it altogether, that's even better. And even if you can avoid it, that's even better. Again, all I'm saying is here's the kind of the price points. The more premium executive type vehicles in the luxury car segments are going to be better buy on a used car market, whereas the more hotted up vehicles are going to be less of a deal. Again, sell it if you've got, though. If you don't really feel like you want that, my suggestion is just get rid of it. Cleanse yourself from any luxury vehicles. You're paying a lot of money, insurance, ownership costs, and honestly, the value of it is falling off a cliff. We are going to see a market correction that's going to clean all of this out. And sadly, those people stuck holding the bag, it's like a hot potatoes, and they're holding the set of keys to one of these premium luxury vehicles like this, for example. You're going to be paying the piper. and you're going to be paying the piper dearly. So personally, I would get rid of any premium luxury cars that are costing you money. Maybe it's bought and paid for, whatever, but at the end of the day, maybe rid yourself of that and get into something a little simpler, and we'll talk about that. So the next one we want to get into is exotics. Exotic sports cars, absolutely phenomenal. Everybody wants an exotic, and you know what? I laugh because I look at the Lamborghini Urus, the SUV. First of all, I personally think they've missed the mark. I mean, there's those that have to have it, want it, that's cool. But you know what? If you ever wanted to get into that, get the RSQ8 Audi. It's the same vehicle for 2/3 the money. But either way, I would skip all of them. And the Lamborghini Urus, I'm seeing them flood the market. And if you're thinking the Urus is a great vehicle and you really need to have one, definitely on the used car market, 3 or 4 years old now, they've been around for a bit. Definitely some phenomenal deals on there, and there's lots to choose from. Again, I would personally stay away from them, but if you need to have one, sure. I've also seen some of the older markets, Ferraris, not selling. Lamborghinis, Huracans are all over. I've seen some of those go for under what they should be, under book value for some Huracans, because Huracans are a popular vehicle. They're the kind of vehicle that Tom, Dick, or Harry can probably afford if they really dig in deep and get a deeper level of bank loan, because there's now a lot of Huracans that are barely, we're seeing them in that 200,000, high hundreds, $200,000 range. And now that's not much more than a full-size jacked up diesel pickup truck. So there are some people that can stretch and reach and get vehicles like Huracans. McLarens are taking a beating. They're always going to be the depreciation kings in the exotic market. So hold on, watch out for those. If you need to have an exotic car, you're definitely going to have the pick of the litter coming up. They are declining. And don't let any of these dealers tell you that they're selling like hotcakes. Watch for the market. If they've been on the market for a week or 2 weeks, you're probably not going to have great negotiating power. However, check out some of the options and some of the statistics on these vehicles. Car Gurus, and go on about some of these vehicle options as to where they're selling and how long they've been selling for. And you'll find vehicles typically 60, 90, 120 days is not uncommon for luxury cars or supercars. And if you're looking for one of those exotic cars, you'll find older Aventadors, you'll find, Ferrari 488s, Huracans, McLaren 720s, even the older 650s, and now even 765s have been sliding. I've been watching that market, as has the Pistas and the Ferrari 488s, because they were closer to a mil in Canadian funds, and now I'm seeing them all over all day long for 650, 700. They've gone down probably 30, 40% them as well for the Pista. So there's some great deals, and the deals are coming in mass abundance. But don't be hasty, don't jump to the pump, and don't let those dealers tell you that they're selling like hotcakes. Wait it out, and you'll get yourself a great deal. Another one is compact SUVs. Now, I want to talk about that one. Compact, subcompact SUVs, cars, those are going to be a market that's hot like potatoes. And I shared you with one of my previous videos on the new vehicle sales. Now, month over month, this last month, we've seen a decline, but year over year, the increase in sales in the subcompact and compact SUVs and cars have been hot. They've been more or less on the rise. While people are trading in their full-size trucks, saying, I can't afford the insurance, the gas, they're too expensive to buy new or maintain, I'm going to buy myself something smaller and more economical. And yes, we're seeing bigger climbs in the subcompact SUV and car space. Now, with that said, now what we're starting to see are the new car SUV prices are going up. As I shared with you the experience I had shopping for a RAV4 Prime, and the dealers are now taking advantage of people on the new market and tacking on all kinds of extras. Now, while they're not able to put on this market adjustment fee, now they're charging you. In my case, I saw $11,000 that essentially equated to paint protection film and a little spray undercoating. And they're openly admitting that. So we know they're being brazen, they're being bold, and they're charging people through the nose for a lot of these popular, easy to own, affordable, and reliable subcompact and compact SUVs and cars like Toyota RAV4s, their Honda CR-Vs. The Mazdas are a little bit of an anomaly. You can get better deals over there in the CX-5 and CX-50s. But again, some of the classics, they're going for a lot of money. And then because people don't want to spend that 60 grand on a RAV4 because it's a joke, it really is quite expensive. They're now looking for the next best thing, the 2 or 3 year old RAV4, and there are lots of people focusing on that space, and they're still paying $30,000, $35,000. I've even seen people pay more for a 1 or 2 year old RAV4 or even the Tacomas than they were brand new. It's a joke. And now, Toyota, we know the incentives aren't mass in abundance. There's not a ton of incentives in the Honda space. They pretty much now finally just give it to you as is. They might start tacking on some extras, but you're more or less going to pay sticker for new. But that just leaves people saying, I don't want that, but I will buy this used vehicle instead. But now that's driving the competition because there's more people with the same idea. So that's where I would say, if you want that smaller subcompact or compact SUV or car, honestly, the smaller, Japanese vehicles are going to be vehicles, while they're amazing and they're great to own and they will last you a long time, I'd say shop with caution and do your homework, but you're probably going to pay more than you should for some of those vehicles. And that's why I would stay away from them as well. Now, generally speaking, large SUVs, off a freaking cliff because they're not selling. I mean, sure, we're seeing people trying to unload themselves from big car payments. We've seen that TikToker there sharing the experience of about a $1,600 a month payment on a Yukon. And honestly, that's the theme. That's what's going on. We know they're depreciating. It's a full-size truck, basically SUV on a full-size truck platform. People are trying to free themselves of debt. And those are some big debt bases. Obviously, driving a full-size SUV, it's practical, but a lot of people are realizing it's just not for me. So what we're starting to see is those starting to fall off too. So again, if you need to have something in that full-size truck, full-size SUV space, I would suggest going beyond 5 years. Go well beyond that. And honestly, if you don't really need the full-size truck altogether, truck or full-size SUV, honestly, don't. That would be my advice. Who needs that full-size tank? Especially if it's just you and you're driving to work, daily commute, and you're driving a full-size Yukon or a Suburban or an F250 to work, and it's just you. It kind of seems a little overkill, and you're paying for that luxury. So honestly, do what I do and look for the slightly older, maybe moderate miles. Make sure it checks out. It doesn't have rust underneath because a lot of these are rusting out if you're from the East Coast and some of the prairies. We're finding a lot of these vehicles are rotting out underneath. So definitely be careful with a lot of those. A lot of them are built out of cheap pot metal and they're just not holding up all that well to salty roads. So be careful with that. But again, not a great market from a used car perspective. Obviously in late model, obviously it's just the kind of vehicle you probably just don't want to get into, if we're being honest. I would personally unload them, and prices are starting to reflect. Now, again, they are still traditionally fairly high on a used SUV, full-size SUV, as is a full-size pickup truck. They're traditionally quite high. Even though people are starting to unload them, they're still kind of holding high, and dealers aren't necessarily openly admitting that they aren't selling. Yes, well, you see some people, oh yeah, I get this all the time where people reach out to my channel and they're saying, well, you know what, we're selling these, we can't keep them. They're selling out of stock. And there's no inventory. But a lot of that is honestly smoke and mirrors. I even had a comment there last week about an individual here in Canada who reached out from Vancouver Island to tell me that their dealers, basically contrary to what I was saying about full-size trucks not selling and full-size SUVs and those types of vehicles are not selling. And he said their lots in Victoria, British Columbia, which is the island, there's no inventory. There's nothing available. Everything's selling out and everybody's buying them up. And there's no repossessions. But I've already kind of corrected. I said it's very much in different locales. Like some areas have bigger hotspots than other areas. And it's always going to be a little different. But in Victoria is where all the rich people are. If you know and you've been following obviously what's going on in the economy, we know Vancouver, Victoria, Toronto are some of the hot spots for real estate and where all the people with money, well-heeled, tend to reside. So of course people with money have the extra cash. They're paying that $3 million for an 800 square foot house and they're paying 150 grand for that truck. And they're okay with that. They're just used to that cost of living. But that's an anomaly. For the most part, full-size SUVs and trucks, not a good buy because they're still a lot of money and they're just not worth it. Quite frankly, you probably want to rid yourself of that. Prices are still high though. That's the thing. Prices are still high. So, cheap cars. That's one thing I just want to kind of touch on very quickly is the fact that that's the sweet spot. Now, if you want a quality vehicle that's going to last you a long time, honestly, you know what? look at get into a 2012, 13 Honda Civic. The best engines, they had the old 2 liters, torque converter transmissions. They were bulletproof. Same with the old Corollas by Toyota, bulletproof. You know, vehicles like that were maybe 10 years old, they will run forever. If you can find a nice one that's got low Ks on it, those are increasing in value. And if you can get into one of those for a decent buy yet, do it. Get it while they're hot. Because those low mileage 5 to 10-year-old Hondas and Toyotas are selling like hotcakes. And that's where the market is gravitating right now. The people are all looking for the same thing. They're trying to dump that big full-size SUV, unload that full-size truck, get away from that, all of those expensive vehicles. Even people normally traditionally driving luxury vehicles are now making a decision, you know, maybe I'll park the Beamer and maybe I'll drive this luxury or this subcompact car instead. So the car space that's in that $10,000 to $15,000 range is kind of that sweet spot. You can get a quality vehicle that feels good, runs good. It's not all worn out and rusted out yet. It still feels like a quality vehicle, but you're not paying the top dollar. That's the space that a lot of people are kind of gravitating. Now we go one step further. The space of in between that $1,000 to $5,000 range, they're going off the charts. They're hard to come by. A quality vehicle that isn't rotted out, that isn't blowing blue smoke, those are gems. Those are the little diamond in the rough. And if you can get yourself a $3,000, $4,000 car, even $5,000 car that runs and drives and doesn't need a ton of work, maybe throw a set of tires on it and it's good to go, that's a huge win right now. And that's what people are looking for. It's not just you and I. But that's where, if you can find yourself a good quality, slightly older, used vehicle, that's where you've got to get to. Because if you can let this market reside in ups and downs and the ebbs and swells, and I've said this in my other video, this last video I kind of posted yesterday about the cost of living crisis, you definitely want to focus on the lower cost vehicles. Ride this out. Some of those lower, cheaper vehicles are just easy to own. And if you buy a $2,000 car and you get 2.5 years or 3 years out of it and it finally blows up, no harm, no foul, and it's a win in your book. So honestly, look at the low-cost vehicles right now. Try to rid yourself of the high-priced, late-model vehicles like trucks, SUVs, and luxury vehicles. And if you need to have a luxury, an exotic car, wait it out. Watch those days on the lot. You're definitely going to get yourself a phenomenal deal. So that's kind of where the market's at right now. My personal take is ride the ebbs and swells. Right now we're at a high point. I'm still riding out rocking the 2003 Ram with 105,000 miles, and it's doing me just fine until the market adjusts and corrects itself, which it will, as we head into this continued long chronic recession of people living under tents and under bridges. It's a sad state of affairs, living in their car on the side of the road. We're seeing a lot more of that. If you saw my video yesterday, you can appreciate it. And with that said, I'm definitely going to point you there because that's a video you want to understand, because that's why you want to get a cheap used vehicle. The cost of living crisis is real, and that's what it's all about. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.